It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back at the Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew version 1.0 decklist of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. As always, you know the motto, it's ABB, always be brewing, baby, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, so it's really appreciate it if you can interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out the links in the description. The Discord is live. Mikey and I are in there chatting, as well as I made my first Millsy Brews merch. I'd appreciate it if you could check it out. Today we're doing a re-record of Eluge. I put this up last week, and unfortunately I had messed with some settings, and they were not the correct settings. So we're back to different settings. We're going to redo this one. I think the video was good, unfortunately just the sound was in and out. So it was hard to hear, and I want to make sure that we're presenting the good content, especially since the video did really well in that first day or two that we had it up. So I want to make sure that we have it up in good form. Eluge is a 4-mana star elemental fish from Balloon Burrow. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of islands we control. Whenever Eluge enters or attacks, we're going to put a flood counter on target land. It's an island addition to its other types for as long as there's a flood counter on it. And the first instant or sorcery we cast each turn costs blue or one color less if need be, less to cast for each land you control with a flood counter on it. There's a lot of ways to go about paying off Eluge, but the thing that I kind of thought about was trying to get as many flood counters as we can on our lands so that we could reduce our spells. We can do that a couple of ways. We can blink and or copy Eluge to get more of them on that way, or interact with counters in other ways. I think the easiest way is to blink and copy Eluge, since we have so many ways to do that in blue. But eventually, right, we're going to be casting spells and trying to do them as cheaply as possible. There's a couple ways we can look at doing that. Counter spells make a ton of sense, right? Stopping our opponents as we get ourselves ahead. Drawing cards and doing other things makes a ton of sense. So we're going to play some pieces that are going to matter on both of those. And then we're going to play one or two little pieces of stacks to hurt our opponents. Since we really want to be playing as many basic islands as we can do some of that, hating on non-basic lands to kind of help give us that advantage. As far as getting more flood counters, I think this is where my idea for Eluge kind of takes off. Displacer Kitten says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can exile up to one target non-land permanent you control and bring it back in under owner's control. The intention here is to blink Eluge, right? Allowing you to come back in and get another flood counter on land. The other nice thing about blinking Eluge, remember, is that Eluge's ability says the first instant sorcery you cast each turn. Well, no, that wouldn't matter. Sorry. No, the blinking, it wouldn't matter. I apologize. So completely discount that thought. Harbinger of the Seas turns all non-basic lands into islands. Kind of like that classic Blood Moon effect, but for islands. Help shut our opponents down a little bit. Spark Double can come in as a copy of Eluge, except it just has a counter on it, giving us another ETB and more attack triggers from Eluge. The Flood of Mars says whenever it attacks, you put a flood counter on another creature or land. If it's a creature, it becomes a copy of the Flood of Mars. If it's a land, it becomes an island to shoot its other type. So here's a way to spread some flood counters. And the Flood of Mars has Island Walk. So if you pick your opponent's lands, then you could start hitting in for free. We do also have other ways to make tokens when we cast spells. We could turn them into copies of the Flood of Mars and have an army of them, Redica's Val Duplication can make a copy of Eluge, except it's not legendary and has flying. Splash Portal can just go ahead and bounce Eluge for us. And then Blur, Essence Flux, and Planar Incision, all just ways to blink Eluge, bring it back in to get more of those flood counter triggers. Same thing with Teferi's Time Twist as well. Quicksilver Fountain is an interesting artifact. So at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a flood counter on a 9-island land they control. That land's an island for as long as the flood counter on it. But it says at the end of the turn, if all lands in player islands, you remove all flood counters from them. So this is a way to quickly increase the number of islands with flood counters on them and hurt our opponents. But the problem is, right, there's a way that we could go wrong, right, and that every land turns into a island and then they reset. But it could be very useful, right, in the meantime, shutting our opponent's lands down. And then Fish Liver Oil, which works really great with the Flood of Mars and Quicksilver Fountain, giving Eluge Island Walk, allowing it to really start getting in, right, and dealing damage to our opponents. As far as the spells and matter side of things go, there's a lot of ways you could do this. These are just the 3 cards I'm choosing to put on screen for this. You have things like Talrand, they're going to make tokens every time we cast a spell. Mind Splice Apparatus is going to make our spells a little bit cheaper. And then Kitsa has prowess, can tap to draw and discard, help us dig through the deck, but it can also tap to copy a spell as long as its power hits a certain threshold. So just kind of some ways to interact with us casting spells. In the same way that we can interact with us drawing cards, a lot of blue spells draw cards. In fact, it's the best way to dig through our deck for more value. So why not pay off that happening? Alondra and Homunculus Horde each have abilities that go off whenever we draw our second card each turn. Ominous Seas whenever we draw a card at all. We'll get a counter on itself, and we can remove counters to make these Kraken tokens. Again, just ways to pay off the things that we already want to do and take advantage of them going on. But I think where the deck probably really shines is, remember that Eluge says the first instant or sorcery each turn, meaning that, well, counter spells become really cheap on our opponent's turns, and if we can value counter spells that give us added value, that's even better. Arcane Denial draws us some cards. Archmage's Charm has the option to counterspell or give us some other value depending on what we see in the moment. Cryptic Command, Mystic Confluence, these are counter spells that also let you do other things on top of them, which feel great, right? To get value while we're countering something. Rewind can counterspell and untap some of our lands for using other spells. Sublime Epiphany, 3 steps ahead. Again, other ways to counterspell and get some other added value, whereas a Spell Gyre just gives us the option to counterspell or do some surveilling and drawing. But the point is that counterspells are very much active in blue, and we have a ton of them that we have access to that we can use. And then as our light stacks, Winter Moon and Back to Basics, both restricting other all players from untapping non-basic lands. Again, we don't have many in the deck, so we really don't care, and our islands are going to be safe and untap every time for us to use. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Eluge, and I think in testing there's a lot we can learn about how the deck is functioning. For my first time we recorded the episode, I think the thing I gathered was maybe we're not playing enough spells, so maybe that's the thing we need to add more. Maybe we need more things like Chrome Host, Seed Shark, or Shark Typhoon, or Metallurgic Summonings to take advantage of all these spells we're casting to get kind of creatures to overwhelm our opponents. You know, there's a lot of ways we could take in testing, but the truth is, I think our counterplay is there. The question is, how do you finish off the game other than Eluge? And I think we'll see more of that, right, as we play the deck. But getting into our play tests, we're going to start with playtest number 1. Now, for this video specifically, I have to say that I can simulate a lot of things, but I can't simulate what my opponents are going to do, right? So if we get to a point in the game where I'm holding 2 or 3 counter spells, the playtest becomes a lot less useful because, you know, what would I counter? When would I counter it? You know, that kind of thing. But the point of this playtest is not for the magical Christmas land or what the deck can do. It's to try to get us to understand the mentality of what is our deck trying to do and how do we get there and use the different hands that we see to get us there. Right, so here we're keeping a 3-lander with the Leyline of Anticipation, allowing us to cast spells at flash speed. That starts with it on our hand. We're seeing a Harbinger of the Seas, Brainstorm, and Nexus Fate. I'm not playing a ton of extra turn spells, but it is a way that you could go, as they are going to get reduced by Eluge. I guess the question is, do we Brainstorm here turn 1? It feels bad because we're kind of jumpstart a little bit, but we're going to put 2 things back. I don't really think I have a turn 2 play either, so I think I'm just going to kind of wait and see. There's a second island. Okay, well, I think now's the time to do this. So draw a fee. We see Kitsa, Spell Gyre, and Sublime Epiphany. I think I'll put the Sublime Epiphany back on top, and I'll put an island back on top. I mean, we're just going to end up drawing it, but the point is right now we've seeded our hand with some extra stuff. So turn 3. I guess the option is Harbinger of the Seas or Kitsa. I kind of like Kitsa just because we eventually have that option to copy things, and I kind of want to get it down and get it processing. And then turn 4 here, we'll get Eluge down. Now, technically, we could flash Eluge in on somebody else's turn because of that landline anticipation if we wanted to. Maybe make our opponents think we have something to leave the Spell Gyre up, right? Do stuff like that. But we get Eluge down, put a flood counter on this. Now everything's costing 1 less, blue or Kolos. We do the option to draw and dig. We don't know what the next card is, so if we draw and dig, you know, we'll have to pitch something. But I'd say let's do it with Kitsa, and we secure it. Here's a great way that once we fill our graveyard up with enough cards, we can make that octopus token. Let's see, 1, 2. I'll go to Fairy's Aegis Insight, I guess. There's a lot of great options in the hand, but I just want to keep them here for now. Work our way towards more. So turn 5 here, no land drop, but that's okay. I'd probably just go in and attack with the Eluge. See if we have somewhere in turn 5 where we can get in and attack, getting that reduction down to 2. Now Reality Shift is free if it's first thing we play on an opponent's turn. Spellgyre down to 2. I like the idea of something like Kiora, just to just start digging through our deck some more. The cool part is we actually don't have to cast it in our turn. We could, we can still cast it at flash speed with the ley line if we want to do that. We just don't have that 5th mana right. But I think I would tap. Let's tap Kitsa to draw and see what we get. We see Homunculus Horde. Okay, well that would help with things like Cure that could draw me, and Spellgyre, which could potentially draw. So you do have some options there to get some synergies. I mean, all of these cards are really great, right? Here's the draw. They could get better. Sublime Epiphany is just going to be a great card to lead our way up to. Reality's great removal. The truth is, I probably just look at the board. If I don't need the removal, I'd probably just keep pitch the Reality Shift, because we still have some, if we need to shut our opponents down, then it's the Harbinger. Otherwise, I guess I'll just pitch the Harbinger. The problem here is that we got to get rid of something, right? Since we tapped the Kitsa, and I don't mind that. I go through my opponent's turn. If killing something's really necessary, we do the Reality Shift. Otherwise, I think we just get Cure the Rising Tide in. We have to draw 2 and then pitch 2. Mind Splice is great, but I think we're going to kind of outpace it a little bit. And then I love Displacer Kit and start blinking Eluge, but we really need those lands. That's what we're trying to dig for, right? I guess Reality Shift if I haven't used it yet. Coming back to our turn 6, of course we miss the lands again. Attack with Eluge, get another flood counter on there. And then we got to get, the truth is we got to get something down to start drawing cards. We'll just draw with Kitsa just to see. Well, there's Mystic Sanctuary, which actually comes in tapped. It's going to put something back on top. So I think we should just put, like, we dump Spellgyre, play the Mystic Sanctuary, and maybe we put the Spellgyre back on top. Just something to, and that'll actually come in untapped, which is nice. That kind of makes me want to play something like Displacer Kitten. And then that way if I cast a spell, right, it can come untapped, or there's something like Homunculus Horde for that draw, right, to start getting more. I guess here we'll go with the Kitten. And the truth is that we still have 1 mana left. We don't have anything we can cast actually at the moment, but that's okay. I think we're okay at the moment. We draw the Spellgyre this turn again, really missing those lands this playtest, but that's okay. Remember, if we cast a spell, we can blink Eluge, right? So, I mean, we could attack. Eluge is a 5/5 now. Get this. Play the Spellgyre for free, surveil, and then draw 2. Because my hope here is we could start getting access to good things. I like the Planar Incision to blink Eluge, but I think, well, it could be free on somebody's turn. That's the important part, right? And then the Elandra for that double draw. Elandra does have the option to start making those Drakes bigger, but I think we'll just pump the Elandra to the graveyard and do this, try to hit that next land. But that blinks Eluge coming in, putting it on Mystic Sanctuary, so now everything costs 5 less. We used none of it for the Spellgyre. So on somebody else's turn, Sublime Epiphany is only costing 1. Go to our opponent's turns. I guess you might as well put the back to basics down. Have 2 mana left. That means that Sublime Epiphany is up, and so is Season of Weaving if we choose to do them. Draw cards with Season of Weaving and things like that. I think there's a lot of options there. I think I'll stop here just because the lack of lands hurt us on this playtest. But I think now on my opponent's turns, I can Nexus of Fate, I could Season of Weaving, I could Sublime Epiphany. The nice part is it's 5 reduction per turn, meaning on my 3 opponents' turns, I could play all 3 of these, 2, 1, and 1, 4 mana. Right now, I played the back to basics for 3, so I'd only have 2 mana left. But you could see that how much spells worth of things you could do here, or I could play that Planar Incision for free, You know what I mean? So there's lots of options here, and we'll move into our next playtest. He went a 4-land with that Mystic Sanctuary with Spark Double, Reality Shift, and Quicksilver Fountain. So we see the Fountain this time. We'll play the island. No reason to play that Sanctuary yet, especially if we could potentially get something back from it. And Winter Moon is tempting, you know, stopping players from untapping those non-basic lands. Here on turn 3, I guess there is the option to Quicksilver Fountain, but as much as I love the idea of it, because it really just starts putting flood counters on me, you know, we could start eventually running the risk, but I think it's time. Everybody else starts doing on our turn, we'll put a flood counter on this one. This is Sanctuary will come in untapped. Unfortunately, nothing to bounce, but we'll put Eluge in, making another one into it. We're on our way, right? Remember, everyone's lands have to be islands in order for Quicksilver to go away. Now we can cast Reality Shift for free and an offer right on our opponent's turn. So that's good. We have some counterplay. We have some removal. This turns into it. I guess I'll just put a flood counter. Just come in with a copy of Eluge, I guess, just as an option, right, to really just take advantage of this reduction. Now, something that was pointed out to me in the last video I recorded that we'll get to use again here is that each of these reduce the cost by 1. So I have 8 total of reduction. So I could actually mass manipulate for 2 right now into X and just take 2 things if I wanted to. But the nice part is now all of these are online and doing that. Mass manipulation may be the thing I do next turn, but you know, now we just keep building, right? Just keep building, play some counterplay, steal some things, and I think we're set here. We'd love to have some more card draw this game. We just didn't see it. Eventually, the Quicksilver Fountain's going to go away, and that'll be a bummer, but now we have 2 Eluges, right, to attack and get the flood counters back. And in the playtest number 3, keeping that Kiora, an offer you can't refuse, Winter Moon, and Baral. So Baral reducing our spells by 1. And whenever we counter a spell, we draw a card, and if we do, we discard. So on their turn 1, I shouldn't hit next turn. We draw Lab Maniac. If we really start digging through our deck drawing, we don't have to worry too much. I think I'll just Winter Moon here. Start hurting our opponents. Then we get to turn 3. Love the idea of Cure because we really don't need a ton more lands if we don't have to. Love the Ghostly Flicker for Eluge, but I also like the Flood of Mars. I like Lab Maniac. I love an offer. I love Baral. So I think I'll go a land and we haven't seen the counters quite yet, but we know they're coming. Dumping the Lab Maniac seems bad, but for the purposes of this playtest, I think it's perfectly fine. So turn 4, right here, we see the Eluge come down. Get the flood counter on again. We don't have a lot of counterplay, but now at least an offer you can't refuse is free. On somebody else's turn, maybe just stop them a little bit here. You're on turn 5. I love the idea of flickering both of these to get the flood counter and get the draw. Right, so we would flicker them, bring them both back in. I guess we could attack first if we want to, but either way, Eluge makes that in there. We then get to draw 2 and pitch 2. Again, the point is we're trying to work our way into just more and more value. Curse of the Swine is some mass removal and mass minute for the steal. I guess I'll go Swiftfoot, and again, for the purposes of this, we're just trying to. I guess we'll just play Baral right this turn since we have the mana. I'll pitch the flood. Again, for the point of the playtest, it doesn't matter too much. In a real game, I might be thinking a little bit more about what I want to ditch. We're up to 5 cards of the graveyard. The goal is try to get towards that threshold, right, to really take advantage of that. I think we just have Eluge attack, right, get another piece of reduction for our spells. Mass Minute for 1, but that doesn't really make a ton of sense. I think I kind of like to hold up something like Mystic Confluence, right? I mean, spells are costing 1 less, so that's really nice. So this is only 2 mana right now. The Mystic Confluence is only 2 mana, or only 1 mana right now. So it's nice to kind of keep these up, right, as we go into our opponent's turns. If we counter, we get to draw, right? There's options here. And I think this is where the game would probably come into what do my opponents have? What am I keeping up? Do I need to take something out? Do I wait to use one of our big counter spells and just make some copies, net some value? You know what I mean? I think this is the point of the playtest where it gets kind of wonky because the truth is you just don't know what your opponents have. But let me know, what do you think of Eluge down in the comment section below? Hopefully this one sounds a lot better. The deck still looks good, and I'd love to hear what you think. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.